future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
All right. Here we go.
I know you're inside, you're feeling so hollow.
All right, everybody, welcome. Another edition today of Kobylt and Friends. And our studio audience just keeps growing and growing. It's larger than the one, I don't know. I'm beginning to wonder. It's almost larger than the one in Nevada last night.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, how are you, Kurt?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Deborah?
Did you watch last night? I mean, I couldn't take my eyes off.
I was engineering some shows, so
Okay.
I was catching like key.
So you were catching the key points.
Yeah, every now in between. But
Oh my goodness. You know, we have a very special guest on and friend, Michael Reagan. Hello, Michael.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. So you just got off another radio interview, huh?
Yeah, TV, Newsmax.
Oh, okay, got it. You were just on Newsmax, so thank you for giving us the time. Michael Reagan, everyone knows Michael Reagan, son, of course, of the former president, Ronald Reagan. He's an author. He's been a talk show host. He's a father of two, a husband. He's a philanthropist.
And a grandfather now.
Oh,
And
you're a
grandpa.
grandpa. Oh, my gosh. Congratulations. What did you
Hey,
have?
what can I tell you?
Yeah.
Little girl, Marilyn. Marilyn
Oh.
Page is her name.
Oh, that's beautiful. How old is
You know
she
who
now?
she's named? You know who she's named after? She's named after Marilyn Monroe and Page, the diva cage fighter.
Oh, that's going to be trouble. Oh, that's
Oh my God,
adorable.
nothing but trouble.
Oh, you must be just so smitten. I can't even imagine. Are you holding her up to the TV so she can watch what's going on? You know, as insane as it might
No,
seem.
no. I want to get her involved in that. Oh my gosh.
Okay, when my little one was born, my first kid, the OJ trial was going on, and I was at home. I couldn't work. He was literally just born, and I would hold him up to the TV. How sad is that? It just goes to show the kind of household we live in. We eat and live the news in our house. So,
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
yeah, pretty sad. But congratulations to you, Michael. And I'm going to play a quick clip of Trump's victory speech, if you want to call that, his victory speech from last night. Can we go there? Okay.
of course.
I don't feel good about turning down money because my whole life I've been greedy. I've grabbed all the money I could get. I'm so greedy. But now I want to be greedy for the United States. I want to grab all that money.
Okay. You know, somehow watching it the next day and knowing Donald Trump, I actually know what he meant by that. But boy, that did not come across very well last night. Thoughts, Mr. Reagan?
Well, you know, it didn't have to come across great because everybody was applauding. Everybody was happy. Mostly he tells everybody what they want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking the other day, I said, what are those people going to say when he isn't able to build the wall and have Mexico pay for it, when he isn't able to deport 11.5 million illegals in this country, when he's not able to stop Muslims who can legally be here from coming into the United States of America, what will that crowd say then? And it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out because, again, he's doing what a lot of politicians they say do, promise you the moon and get to Washington and end up doing nothing. Well, Donald Trump is promising the moon, and when he gets to Washington, guess what? He's no longer an outsider.
You know, but we can say all that as much as we will. But I have to tell you, I think I said this from the very beginning. I've always felt that he was going to take it all the way because I felt that there was just an inner turmoil, that people are just sort of tired of what's going on in Washington. And it appears that he's just continuing the momentum. I mean, with Bush out, right? A lot of people thought that Rubio would get more of those votes. And I don't know, it seems like more of those votes ended up going over to Trump.
Yeah, but what you've got is you've got traditional campaigns being run by traditional consultants,
right,
who haven't grown with the era.
Right.
And you have Trump, who is his own consultant, says what he wants to say, when he wants to say it. That's what people want to hear. And the consultants haven't caught up with that yet. You have the other candidates, and Bush is a perfect example, who was trying to remember what his consultant told him to say in every debate.
There's no
and
doubt.
he couldn't remember what it was he was supposed to remember to say, and he stepped all over himself.
Well, that's the problem with the consultants. I do some consulting on the side to people, and I always say, first, what we have to do is you have to be who you are. And these guys are never who they are. I mean, maybe Cruz, because he's scary. I think he's been scary as a kid, preschool, in college. He, to me, is a scary guy. What are your thoughts on him?
In my agree, but if I could use another example, Ronald Reagan, first debate with Walter Mondale, over-consulted, got his clock cleaned in the first debate with Walter Mondale. Thank God there was a second debate. And what was the call from Nancy and the family and others? Let Reagan be Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was Reagan being Reagan, he cleaned Walter Mondale's clock in the second debate, and all the quotes that come out of there come out from the second debate, not the first debate where he lost to Walter Mondale. And so, these consultants are just bad news for some of these candidates that are in fact out there.
Do you get called upon to consult anyone? Because that is a good point. As a kid, when I would watch politics, that's the first thing I would think of. These don't seem like real people. So now they've had decades to figure this out, and they're still sort of, turning these guys into political robots.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to Jeb Bush, because I've known Jeb since the 1980s, and I told him in the beginning, don't run away from your father and your brother. My God, you've got two presidents in your family. Don't run away from them.
Yeah, but that
Run
was
to them and embrace them.
But that was also a little bit of the problem. I mean, he's the third guy in, and people would always say, "Oh, God, another one."
Oh,
and
it is a problem. But like to Cruz or to the others that are out there, quit talking about Ronald Reagan, because like my 32-year-old daughter Ashley says, I'm Ronald Reagan's granddaughter. I know who he was, but everybody else 32 didn't live in the 1980s. It was a different era. It was a different time. Let's have a leader for this era, this time. Let's not look backwards. Let's look forwards. That's what my father did in the 1980s. That's what we need to do now. And that's what Donald Trump is doing, and that's what not Ted Cruz, but
Sanders
Rubio's trying to do.
And even Sanders. I mean, look at Sanders. I don't think he's going to take it in the end, actually, but he's a different kind of guy too. He's a politician.
You better pray to God he doesn't take it in the end.
No, I don't think so. But I
know your income.
Well, no, I wouldn't be. I would have to take my kids out of private school, and it's my choice to put them in there. I earned it, and when I look at what he wants to do, that's a real scary thing. But he's also not the establishment, not necessarily, just like Trump isn't. So somebody in Washington, all of these political analysts and the people that are guiding them, they need to all be fired, and new people need to come in and say, look, we need real people with who understand what's going on out there, and that's the problem. Rubio, even though he kind of comes across okay, he's not really resonating, and Cruz, forget it. I mean, Kasich is a guy who never really was able to penetrate all the way as well. And then you've got Carson. What is he saying last night? That there's momentum. They're gaining momentum. Did you hear that? I'm thinking, what is he drinking?
Yeah, he's smoking and drinking something.
I don't know what he's doing.
There's no reason for Carson to still be hanging around. He's never gotten in, let alone stay in, as long as he has, because he is hurting possibly other people. John Kasich, who I've known for years, super qualified. In fact, it's interesting when you look at what John Kasich's done for Ohio. Mm-hmm. He's done everything for Ohio that the people who are supporting Trump want him to do for America, but yet he doesn't gain traction because he doesn't show well. And this is an era where, basically we're playing Survivor. And how do you look on TV, and how do you manage your television image? And, the fact is that Donald Trump knows how to do that because he has been on TV for so long, and these politicians aren't used to television. They don't know how to do it. What the great magic about my father was, and somebody asked me one time, what do you think George Bush needs? I said, he needs a Michael K. Deaver. He said, why? I said, he needs somebody who really understands the media, who can put together events and have him go in there and close the deal like Michael Deaver did for Ronald Reagan. None of these guys running against, Donald Trump have any media savvy on what they need to do, where they need to be, and how to close out an event. I mean, they're happy when they have 1,500 people. You're going, really? Mm-hmm. You're happy with 1,500 people? I mean, Trump's got 10,000. You've got 1,500. Who do you think's going to win?
But it really does come down to their likability. You brought up Kasich. I think he's a good guy. And if I were a strategist, I would go into his home and I would watch him at night. I'd watch him with his family and I would really kind of analyze where he's most comfortable. And I would take that and I would run with it. And then I would say, this is the guy. This is the Kasich that we need to show to people, because that is the problem. I mean, people they don't get to know him. They don't like him. And therefore they're not listening. And I think that you're
I don't
right.
think it's not that they don't like John Kasich. They don't know if they don't know him yet.
They don't know him yet,
him.
yeah.
And they're not going to have time to know him because he's only playing in a couple of states. I mean, Cruz, everybody knows, and nobody likes, Ted Cruz. Nobody likes Ted Cruz.
No.
I mean, the worst thing you can do to the Republican establishment is have Ted Cruz get the nomination or be asked to be the vice president, and then you put him in charge of the Senate of the United States of America. And let me tell you, there's not a senator there that wants Ted Cruz to be the leader of the United States Senate. He's got some real problems, with the establishment Republicans back in Washington, D.C. And
What are some of those problems?
They should quit talking about being Ronald Reagan. None of them are Ronald Reagan. None of them are really Reagan-esque. I mean, if anybody, you have Rubio who's given some great speeches on losing nights about looking forward that's Reagan-esque, but none of them are in fact Ronald Reagan. Can you imagine somebody going on radio and saying, something? I'm the next John and Ken. I'm the next John and Ken. You go, who's John and Ken?
I hope they wouldn't say that, but okay.
No, but you know what I'm saying.
Of course.
You gotta be your own leader, be your own person. I mean, you've got to take over. You've got to fight for it. If you want to be president of the United States, you want to be number one, you got to fight for it. I think there's better qualified people than Donald Trump. He scares the hell out of me.
What scares you?
What he's going to do? But again, the fact is he's willing to fight for the presidency. These other guys need to learn how to really get down and fight.
It's really incredible because he has said some really disparaging things. Everything from, Rosie O'Donnell, which was before he ran, to, with Carly Fiorina. I think what he said last night, I understood where he was coming from. The guy is from New York, and I understand the way people talk from New York and New Jersey. They can be a little crude. They can be a little tough. It's like, hey, I'm a little greedy. I want to do this for everybody. But that doesn't play that well for around the country. But no matter what it is that he says, it's almost like he's Teflon. He can get away with it, and people just like him. And I'm not necessarily sure why. Maybe it's because he's just his own guy, and there's no one that he's really being accountable to except himself. Don't you think? I mean, that's really it.
I mean, he's only accountable really to himself. He found out he can say what he wants to say when he says it, and he's not going to get hit back for it. And there's a lot of people out there, they're angry and they're mad. He's tapped into it, and they want to hear somebody, really shoot from the hip. But it's different running for president than winning the presidency, because now you say, oh, what the hell do I do now?
Well, I was walking with a friend of mine this morning, and she is a diehard Sanders gal. And so we were talking, and we always have this great debate when we go walking. And she said, what do they see in him? He's never had a tough day in his life. I said, they see in him someone who can build a hotel, make jobs, and they think that maybe he can bring back jobs, keep jobs in America, and that's what they're going for. I mean, look, he's got the Latino votes, he's got the working class vote. I mean, he's really appealing. He's got such a broad appeal. I mean, and I told her, even though he's a wealthy guy, they're looking at him as a guy who can make something happen. And I don't feel like the other candidates are doing that.
Well, again, he makes people believe that he's going to make something happen. He makes people believe I'm going to build a wall and have Mexico pay for it. He's got people believing they're going to knock on doors and throw 11.5 million people out of the United States of America. Because the one thing about conservatives is the fact that if they don't have a leader, then they need to coalesce behind an enemy. And so the enemy became illegal immigration. Mm-hmm. And because it gets ratings, you can sit there and talk about it till you're blue in the face on it. And everybody knows you need an immigration policy in the United States of America. So you coalesce, and that becomes your enemy. Now you've got somebody who, in fact, says, I'm going to buy into that. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to lead with that, because I know there's a whole lot of people in this country who are, in fact, fed up with the illegals, because we've taken to the point where we blame illegals for everything. I mean, we stopped blaming George Bush, started blaming all the illegals.
No, it's true.
And so, I mean, that's where you stand. And that's what Trump is, in fact, tacked into. And that's what keeps him where he's at.
What about the religious people? I mean, even the evangelicals are Trump supporters. That's even surprising. I think it's surprising Cruz. I mean, he's sort of getting momentum from everybody. But why is it that you think that the establishment from the very beginning didn't ever think that he would go anywhere? Because I always thought that. I thought, no, you're wrong. You're going to see.
They don't like him. They don't like Ted Cruz. Nobody likes Ted Cruz.
No, not Cruz. I'm talking Trump now. Because, I mean, even from the beginning, no one really wanted to stand behind him. If you listen to some of the commentators, they didn't want him there. They didn't think that he could do it. And if this keeps up, it looks like he can do it. So
yeah, I mean, I put a tweet way back in the beginning.
Yeah.
I said, if Trump was going to have a theme song,
yeah,
it would be the theme song from the Music Man, 76 trombones. Because that truly, I mean, if you really think about it, that's him out there marching in front of everybody, leading the band, and all the other candidates are behind him following, and all the women are swooning and all that. And that's what I put out there months ago with him, because that's exactly what it looked like. And I'm surprised he's where he is at this point. I don't see any way that can knock him down. I see the fact that Cruz will win Texas, but there's no place where I see Rubio winning.
It's pretty
and
amazing
so there's no direct march to the nomination by Rubio, and Cruz has Texas, maybe Ohio goes to Kasich, but then it's over.
It is over, and it's amazing. It's incredible that Trump's probably going to take Florida. So I mean, yeah. So for Rubio, so I also saw a tweet that you put out there the other day, and it said at this time now, it's who's going to be the running mate for Trump. Isn't that correct? Didn't you put out something like that?
Cruz?
No, for Trump. In other words, who will be his running mate?
Who did it? We were talking about the other night at the house.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, maybe it's going to be Rubio. Maybe that's why Rubio isn't attacking him. He's looking to be first loser and get the nomination, for the vice presidency. But this talk in the house between my daughter Ashley, myself, and my wife Colleen was, how do you know he's going to go with a politician? He may go with a business partner of his to be the vice president, somebody he can work with to change and fix the United States of America. That would be more Trump-like than go with like a insider politician, or a first-term senator.
I do not think he's going. This is my prediction. I do not think he's going to go with a politician. I think Carson is hoping it's him. Forget it. Rubio, I don't think so. I think he's going to go with another business guy. I really do. Or gal.
Exactly what I just said. Yeah, he'll go with another business guy. Hey, you'll name Ben Carson, Surgeon General,
of course,
Secretary of Health and Human Services. Gosh, get out of the race.
What is he in there for? John and I were talking about that today. I mean, what, for his book deal? I mean, does he really, is it the name recognition that he just won't get out of there? I mean, does he have that big of an ego? What's the point?
Well, I think it's turned into an ego. Is it his ego or is it Armstrong Williams' ego, who's running the campaign? And I always like to follow the money.
Well, who's funding his money right now? Carson, for example.
Well, he's getting funding, but I imagine it's got to dry up at some point. It just has to dry up.
And Kasich is. Go ahead.
If he goes any further, I mean, he's going to become. Right now, people still respect him, but I think that bloom is off that rose.
Good point. Yeah, I don't think he's going to go much further, but you don't know. And Kasich said that he wants to at least last until Ohio. That's fair. And then after that, I think all bets are off for him. And then I don't know what's going to happen with Cruz and Rubio. And then I'm not sure. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens on Tuesday. I mean, I think Trump will take most of the states.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to follow. And you look at John Kasich. If John Kasich drops out before Ohio, it's because he would have lost to Trump in Ohio.
Right.
And he doesn't want to have that all over his face.
Is that
and
possible?
His resume in the future. That could be possible. Anything's possible in politics and war. Trust me. On another note, just real quick, in the last few moments, is this whole thing with Hillary and the judge ruling she should be deposed, or the people who work for her should be deposed.
Yeah.
Just think about it in these terms. It is a Bill Clinton appointed judge who ruled that her workers need to be deposed and put under oath concerning the email. Now, why would that happen? And where do you think the President of the United States stands with this? And my thoughts are the President Barack Obama is very happy with it because he would love to see Hillary out, and he would love to see Joe Biden take her place on the ticket for the Democrats because he thinks that's the only chance they have to win in November against any Republican. So watch what happens in that race.
That is a terrific point. So obviously she's going to take it. I mean, I think the nomination, but I think in the end it will come down to Hillary. I don't think she's going to be forced out or put out. I think it will come down to Hillary. I don't think it's going to be Biden who slides in there if she ends up on the outs. I think we're going to see a race with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. So let's just say that that's a possibility. Looking down the road, what happens then? What happens to the Republicans to stand behind Trump when so many of them don't like him? And can he beat Hillary? And would you want him to? Go ahead.
I mean, you really don't know because a lot happens after the nomination process. I mean, right now the polls are showing that Marco Rubio and John Kasich would beat Hillary, and Donald Trump, basically it's a toss-up, if you will. But so many things change in a heartbeat, as well you know, in politics. You could be behind and 72 hours later be ahead. And win in the landslide. So a lot can happen between now and November. But I tweeted at Reagan World here a few weeks ago with the way Donald Trump was acting, the things he was saying, disparaging remarks about everybody in the debates. And I said, I don't want to wake up on the morning of in November after the election and hear my father from his gravesite say, "Gosh, I didn't leave the party left me."
That's incredible. But if that were to happen, I mean, would the Republicans stand behind him? Would they try and sabotage it? What happens in a situation like that? What goes on behind the scenes that most people don't know about?
Well, you remember, the Republicans didn't show up in the last election.
Right.
You have 80 million evangelicals, 40 million, registered to vote, 20 million voted.
Right.
So, Barack Obama's president, not because the Democrats had great candidates. He's president because we sneered and didn't go to the polls to nominate or to elect our own guy. Mm-hmm. So again, will we show up at the polls to vote for Donald Trump? And what it's looking like right now is, even if the normal people don't show up, he's bringing a whole new host of other people who may, in fact, move them aside, and he may win the election against Hillary Clinton. Because when it comes down to it, people vote for those who are likable and relatable. And one thing about Donald Trump, you may not relate to him in many ways, but he is a heck of a lot more likable than Hillary Clinton. And people vote for the likability quotient.
And what about the families? I mean, if you look at Trump's family, I don't know, a lot of people are trying to envision what that would be like to have Trump with wife number 3 and, all the kids in the White House.
My father was the first president elected who was divorced.
Right, I remember that. That's right. He was divorced to your mom.
That's right. A lot of people were worried about that within the campaign. They were worried about having Maureen and I out on the campaign trail, which we were all over the place, because it was a reminder that my father had another wife before he had Nancy. Now you've got somebody who may get the nomination who's having his third wife, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But you know something? People don't vote for wives. People don't vote for vice presidents. People vote for the guy at the top of the ticket. As I said, evangelicals may stay home to an extent, and they're not during the primaries because it's his third wife. But there's a whole other group of people coming in to say, we don't care. We need a president. We don't care who you're married to.
Well, don't you think, though, with Hillary, though, Bill will definitely surface. I mean, if that's the case, they're going to care who she's married to without a doubt.
Yeah, but hit the blooms off his rose, too.
Yeah.
I mean, Bill a year ago, 2 years ago, was still likable, but now people just want him to show up with 200-mile-an-hour tape over his mouth, so he doesn't say anything. He just stands in the corner like a wooden Indian.
Mm-hmm. So where are you going to be next Tuesday? Where are you going? Are you staying here and watching?
No, I'll be gone. I'm going on vacation, and I will be gone.
Where are you headed?
Gone.
Where are you headed? Because somebody's going to find you for a comment. Where are you going?
No, they're not. I won't even be in the country.
Really? But you don't want to tell me where you're going on vacation? I promise I won't look for you.
I know. but you won't find me.
I won't find you. Okay, don't worry about that.
I'm unfindable, untouchable. My family wants me all to themselves.
Oh, that's wonderful. Michael, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And when do you come back from this vacation that you won't tell us about?
I come back March 16th.
You're back March 16th. Can we talk then? Because I love getting your
absolutely.
comments. I really do. And I know I've said this before. We really should do a dinner because that would be a really terrific evening. So let's try and make that happen too, okay? I would really like to try and make that happen, all right?
Yeah, sit down at dinner with two talk show hosts, and a former talk show host. Yeah, that would be good.
And all kids, because my middle kid is really into this especially. So whoever wants to come would be great. So let's try and get that going too. Michael, thank you so much. Have a great, great trip. And we'll talk to you soon.
You take care, friend. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye, hon. Is he not an outstanding person?
Amazing.
I mean, he's really an outstanding man, and I mean that. I would like to get the guy over for dinner. He's friendly with my husband, and he's just a very genuine person. Whenever I call on him, he's always available. And yeah, I mean, he's just a terrific guy. And what are your thoughts? What did you think? Just by looking at some of the clips, I know you didn't get to see everything last night. And by the way, we'll get to our next guest in a minute. But
I just think with the way everything's going, people want change. They're tired of what's going on, and these candidates are trying, and that's why Bernie is in here to begin with. I mean, and Trump, because people want things to change differently from what's currently going on in the country right now. We want something new and fresh and something different.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of Trump because I think he just talks out of both sides of his mouth. Like a lot of, I hate to say it, a lot of people from back east, New York, they're just very brazen. Yeah. And I can say that because I'm from the area, so I know what it's like. And I think our next guest is from Philadelphia, so it's a little bit sort of the same thing. And I understand some of his comments, but he's really off to one side. But I think what people are interested in is, can he bring jobs to the country? Yeah. Can he do it? Can he keep businesses here? We don't know. You know, internationally, we really don't know what he would do. Would he play well internationally? I don't think so. But who knows? Maybe he would soften. Maybe he'd temper himself. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, okay, our next guest, I'd love to... Kelly, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Hi, Kelly Phillips. Thanks for joining us. Do we have some applause from our studio audience for Kelly?
Oh, of course we do.
Oh, wonderful. Wait, your name is Kelly Phillips Erb, E-R-B, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. And thanks for joining us. Thanks. And you are, you do a very successful blog for Forbes called Tax Girl. You've also written Ask the Tax Girl and Everything Parents Want to Know about filing taxes, which is really terrific. You're a mom of 3 kids. Okay, I'm envious because I have 3 kids and I can't pull it together. You were named by the Philadelphia Business Journal the 40 under 40. You also are a cupcake baker, a dinosaur expert, and a hockey mom. I'm just going to go home right now. I can't deal with this.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Oh my gosh, right? I mean, I'm a mother of 3, and no, listen to me. You just ask Kurt. I can barely get myself through the door here, and it is true. So please explain to me how you're an expert and can pull that off. And you're adorable. Look at her picture.
Oh, thank you. I think part of it is, I think all moms will say it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. Mm-hmm. So sometimes things look better than they are.
Oh, good to know.
My son would argue about whether or not I'm a dinosaur expert compared to him. So
I want you to know I used to be a dinosaur expert. I mean, in fact, I kind of am, like Parasaurolophus and I mean, I know about all of them because one of my kids was so into it. You know, you just sort of had to go there. Do you know what a Parasaurolophus is, by the way? Do you know that?
I do not.
Okay, that's the flying dinosaur. I want you to know. So it looks like I got one on you now. The flying dinosaur.
That's very cool. I know, like Velociraptor, and just the normal, the mainstream dinosaur.
Yeah, I had to go deep. I had to dig down deep. So there you go. So you learned something from me today now.
But before I talk taxes, I have to correct you on one thing because my mother will cry otherwise.
Okay.
While I actually am up in Philly now, I'm originally from down south.
I can hear in your voice. Where are you from?
I grew up in coastal North Carolina, and I came up for law school and stayed, and I really love Philadelphia. Philadelphia area is wonderful. My mother, of course, is horrified that I've stayed, but she still thinks of me as a Southerner.
Well, you sound like a Southerner, so there's no mistake in that. As soon as I heard your voice, I said, she's not originally from Philadelphia. And you went to Temple University Law School, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So you are a bit of an expert, and I love the blog. I think Tax Girl is such it's just a fun way of presenting, information about taxes. Now, first, let's talk a little bit about the presidency. Are you keeping track of what's going on the Republican and the Democrat side?
Yeah, well, actually, ironically, I've been following the GOP side more because we kind of have a little bit of a split on Forbes in terms of coverage, in terms of who's doing what. So I've been following all the GOP debates.
Okay.
I've live blogged all of them except one. So I've been keeping a close eye on that. I've actually been disappointed in the debates that they haven't talked more about tax.
Well, that's why I want to talk about that. I mean, if you've got, let's say, Trump who gets in versus Bernie Sanders or even Hillary who gets in, how will that affect people, particularly high-income earners? What kind of tax does Bernie want to impose?
So I'm going to tell everybody the dirty little secret that nobody wants to talk about with the elections is that it won't matter.
Oh, okay. Tell us.
I mean, everybody keeps wanting to say, you know, if Sanders gets in, here's his tax plan. If Trump gets in, here's his tax plan. Historically, if you look, most first-term presidents don't make a lot of change. Most change actually happens in second term.
Right.
And if you want to talk, I mean, a perfect example, since you just had Michael Reagan on, is Ronald Reagan. I mean, most tax reform, if you want to use that term, tax changes, big ones, tend to happen second term. And I also think that with a divided Congress, I think it's not really going to matter. I think people think that the president has a lot more sway when it comes to economic policy. I think he or she, can set things up. And obviously they have a plan. They're supposed to lead. But, you know, we've had, I mean, how many times did George Bush say that he wanted to repeal the estate tax, and that never happened?
Well, the first George Bush, though, did raise taxes. Remember, he said he wouldn't, and then he did.
Sure.
That was surprising, and that killed him.
But he raised that not because that was his platform, but because he did a compromise with Congress, right? So it's not so much that he drove that as he reacted to what was going on in Congress. So I think that it matters what presidential candidates say. I don't want to, I'm being a little glib about it. It matters what they say, but I don't think it matters as much as people think, because people, again, you know, you look at Sanders' tax plan, people were getting all kinds of worked up about how, you know, the kinds of increases he was pushing or proposing, they wouldn't get through. In much the same way that you want to talk about some of the Republican proposals, Paul's proposal and Cruz's VAT-like proposal, which he doesn't want to call it a VAT, but it's similar to a VAT. Those are not going to be this well received, in my opinion, in a first-term presidency. No matter what kind of support you might have at the polls.
Could they take away, or could certain loopholes be taken away, depending upon who's in office?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things I used to tell my clients all the time is what one administration, puts in today, the next administration can take away. I mean, we always talk about, recently there was permanent AMT relief, which was a big deal.
Right. I think you wrote about that. Go ahead.
Right.
Explain what that is to people.
Well, the AMT is the alternative minimum tax, and it's pretty much a tax provision that says that for high-income earners, when you hit a certain number, that you can't take advantage of certain tax preference items the way that people in lower brackets can.
And what are those?
Well, so things like the mortgage deduction and certain of the itemized deductions. The idea is that if you are spending a lot of money and getting a lot of deductions because you are in a position to spend a lot of money, that you shouldn't necessarily benefit from that. And so we've always had this AMT figure. It changes every single year, and it was never indexed to inflation. So every year we had to wait for Congress to decide on that number. And this year, that doesn't happen anymore because they finally we used to call it a Band-Aid. Every year they put a Band-Aid on it and told us what the new number was. Now it's indexed for inflation, so it happens automatically, so you know what the number is ahead of time. But it took years and years and years to get that passed, and they called it permanent. But, is it really? Who knows? Just like the portability with the estate tax, which allows you to combine exemptions among spouses, that's supposed to be permanent.
Mm-hmm.
Permanent is a very impermanent word when it comes to politics, because just because we want to say that something's permanent, if Congress changes their mind next term, then it's no longer permanent. It's just a word we like to use.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you remember that movie, Dave? Please do not laugh at this. But I always remember thinking, how wonderful to go in and do a complete forensic accounting of what the heck we're spending our money on, because I don't have an issue with taxes. I have an issue with where they're putting it. And I'm all okay with many social causes, but I want to know the layers that are built in for, to pay for various people that we may not need on staff in government. And I feel like our government is pretty big, and I'd love a forensic accounting of our government before anybody raises or even lowers our taxes. I mean,
I agree. I do think that's
nobody
one,
ever talks about it,
sentiment
though.
that people share. I think people absolutely want to know where their money's going, and that's why they're frustrated when they pay taxes. The White House did make an effort to do that over the last few years. You can actually go to, I think it's whitehouse.gov, and get a tax receipt. But it's when you get to a certain level, it's big numbers. So the receipt is going to be, it's not going to be the kind of line item that you're talking about. But it does start to put into perspective where the money goes. I think it's very frustrating for taxpayers. One of the things I talk about a lot in my blog is what frustrates me is that we'll have these bills that will have as their, we'll call it the Veterans Job Bill, but then it'll be stuffed full of all kinds of tax breaks for corporations or loopholes for, well, I don't love the word loopholes, but, different kinds of expenditures that folks don't know about and think that's very frustrating for taxpayers because things get snuck in all the time. And
it very rarely will get filtered down to the veterans. That is one in particular that really concerns me, I have to tell you. And that's what I'm talking about. There are just so many, we're paying taxes, and people need to know where their money's going before they're asked to even pay anymore. But you also write the 10 things you absolutely need to know about taxes. Isn't that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But before we get to that, I have a couple of questions. Should you file early, like by early, I mean like February, March, or should you wait right up until the 15th? Because a lot of people say if they do it early, they're afraid they're going to get audited. They don't want, there to be too much time, or some guy has too much time on his hands and he's really going to go through that person's taxes line by line. He'd rather just sneak it in on the 15th. What are your thoughts on that?
So first of all, I don't think that when you file matters from an audit perspective. A lot of people actually also think the other. They think that if you get an extension, that your chances of being audited go up.
Well, that's true.
Statistically, that's not true either.
Oh.
So it really doesn't matter when you file from an audit perspective. What matters this year in terms of when you file is if you want a refund, if you're expecting a refund, which more than 50% of taxpayers actually get a refund. Mm-hmm. So if you're expecting a refund, you should file early this year because of identity theft. The IRS has been, as you know, inundated with these identity thieves trying to steal refunds. So if someone has your identity and you are expecting your refund and you need your refund, you need to file early, because otherwise, if there's a hold put on it, if there's any problem with your refund at all because of the identity theft, maybe you get a letter that says you have to call in and verify who you are and it delays your refund by a few days. That's where filing early matters.
How are they able to infiltrate the system there? I mean, I can only imagine.
It's interesting because a lot of the headlines about stuff that's gone on in the IRS, they've been very critical of the IT or the computer systems at the IRS, which is completely a fair criticism. However, a lot of the headlines have suggested that some of the identity theft that's gone on is because hackers somehow got into the IRS system.
Yeah, but the same thing. It's probably not updated well enough so that that these hackers can't penetrate through.
Right, but it's not so much that they're hacking into the system. What they're doing is they've gotten what's called out-of-wallet information from other sources, which means somewhere they have your name, your Social Security number, and then they find out other information about you that allows them to. It's the same kind of information that people use when they steal your credit card, or your credit card number. They have enough information about you that they pretend to be you, and that's what actually happened with the IRS with the Get Transcript feature when they said that identity thieves had attacked the website. What folks had done is they had gone in armed with information and tried to get more information. They tried to get taxpayer information with what they had, and a lot of the information that they have came from other sources. It may have come from the Anthem breach. It could have come from the Office of Personnel Management breach. I mean, there's so much of our personal information that's available.
There's so many places you can get it. I mean, everyone asks for your Social Security number. I had to make a call to our health insurance, I don't know, and they want your social security number. Wherever you go, you're giving your social and all kinds of information. That is so easy to get. I don't know why people think it's like, oh, they can't get your social.
And that's why
Anybody can get it.
I've actually written an article and encouraged people to stop giving it away. It was never meant to be an ID number. And in fact, a lot of organizations like colleges no longer use your social security number as your ID number. Like when I went to college, they did. But they've stopped doing that. A lot of doctors' offices now no longer use your social security number. They may use it for insurance, but not as your ID number. So if somebody asks you for your social security number, I always ask them why. Like, why do you need it? And if they can't tell me a reason, like an actual reason, I won't give it to them. Same thing with my kids' socials.
What
if
about?
they really need it, I wouldn't not give it to them if it was a requirement and they can tell me why. Like I'm not gonna tell the IRS they can't have it, because I know why they're using it. But if it's just a line on a form, I ask why you need it.
Yeah, I've done that before, and they said they can't go any further without my social number. I thought, oh, here we go. All right, now, should you do your own taxes? Now, if you have a very complicated set of taxes, I think that's a little too difficult. But if they're not really all that difficult, should you do them at home? Should you do them on the computer? Go to H&R Block? I mean, what do you suggest to people who, where their taxes are not that complicated?
Well, I think it's a comfort level because even folks who might have simple taxes may feel intimidated by their tax returns, may not like using the computer at home, may not have the time. We were talking earlier about having kids. When I come home at night, if I've been working all day and then I've hung out with my kids, I don't want to open up the computer at 11 o'clock at night and start doing my own taxes. I actually don't do my own taxes anymore. I joke that, I wanted to stay married, so we decided to get an accountant. I think that it's your level of comfort. It also is a level of complexity. If you're somebody who just has a W-2 and, maybe doesn't have any dependents or isn't itemizing, then it's pretty easy to walk through on software. If it's a little more complicated, or if you've had a big change in your life, like maybe you've had a baby, you've gotten a divorce, if something is changing with your tax picture, sometimes it pays to go just so somebody can tell you what to do differently next year. So I think it's kind of a mix of how complicated is your return, plus what is your level of comfort doing it yourself, how much time do you have. And I like having somebody do my own taxes because just from the stress, like I give them a big pile of stuff.
Man, I do
and then
too.
they give me something to sign at the end.
Okay, I still like presented with a shoebox full of stuff. This poor man, it's like he hasn't been feeling well lately, and I think it's because he's expecting me to walk through the door. I mean, I still do that. But in your article, 10 things you absolutely must need to know about taxes. What are some of those that that maybe somebody might not know, might not realize? Can you give us a couple?
The first one I think is that you might not have to file. I think that everybody thinks that once they start earning money, or if they get any money at all during the year, that they absolutely have to file a tax return.
Yeah, but you have to make a certain amount of money, and most people know that, right? I mean, wouldn't you say?
Right, no, absolutely. So for some people, I mean, there's some exceptions, but the general rule is you take your standard deduction and you add in your personal exemption, and whatever that number is the number at which you don't have to file if you make less than that number. So for married people, it's around $16,000, and for single people, it's around $10,000. And that matters because I have to say one of the biggest questions that I get around this time is college students asking if they have to file. And assuming that they're not dependents, because these are for folks who aren't, the numbers I told you were for folks who were not dependents. But if you're not a dependent, you may not have to file. And so when you talk about, do you want to pay someone to do your return? Do you want to have to deal with the stress of it? You may not even have to file a return. That said, this year there are some complicating factors, one of them being Obamacare. So it may be that you want to file because of a premium health care credit that you might be entitled to, but you do not have to file just to say that you have insurance, which is what a lot of people think they have to do this year, because if you don't have to file a return because you don't meet the income thresholds, you don't have to prove that you have insurance either. So that's something that a lot of people, are kind of stressed out about because they think they have to file because of the health care requirement, and that's not true.
To itemize or not, yes or no?
Depends. So again, it's all money, it's all numbers. So for what you want to do is you figure out, do you have more deductions that are above the standard deduction limit, which again is around $6,300 for single, $12,600 for married. If your itemized deductions, which tend to be healthcare, charitable, and mortgage. Those are the ones that people tend
They
to.
are tough to prove, though, and I'm surprised that they allow that because don't you think? I mean, some of the charitable contributions, particularly people who donate things, they could really fluff that. I mean, I'm surprised.
They've actually been cracking down a lot on charitable contributions because for a very long time, especially under a certain threshold, you didn't have to produce a receipt.
Right.
So it became a very easy way for people to cheat. And quite frankly, a lot of people gave cash. I can tell you that, especially, I had a lot of clients that would give cash to church on Sunday. They would just throw whatever's in their
they
wallet,
add that up?
the collection plate, and that adds up. You do that 52 times a year. If you throw a 20 in every year, every week, that's a lot of money. So now you have to have a receipt when you donate. So my rule is for anything that you're claiming on a return, I always tell my clients to get a receipt because let's say that you can't find the receipt for the $20 you gave. Well, if you're in a 30% bracket, that's only saving you $6. Do you really want to get audited over $6? No, you don't.
I have to tell you,
I always say get a receipt.
if you get audited, should you represent yourself or should you go find somebody? No, never.
I think that's another thing that people think is that they believe that if they bring a tax pro to a professional to an audit, that somehow the IRS will assume that they have money or assume that they're hiding something, and that's not true at all. I think if you're audited, that you want somebody who knows the law, because what tends to happen is my clients tend to follow, I think all tax audit clients fall into like two categories. You have the one that just says way too much, because they're so nervous. So
that would be me. I would be so nervous. I would just be talking constantly about anything.
Do that. They'll say, "Did you actually give your church $200? Can you prove can you produce a receipt?" And then they'll just start going on and on and on about, well, yeah, because that was the day that I drove my cousin's car to the, and it's a very Southern trait as well, but it becomes this very long story where you might accidentally give away information that maybe was not related to the audit. It digs you
and
in
they're
a hole.
looking
and
for
I've
it.
had that happen.
Well, I'll tell you, I was once audited. This is a while back, and it was because our accountant at the time put in an extra zero, and it is true, for a deduction, and we didn't catch it. And although I did notice that we had to pay less tax, and I thought, gosh, so we fought it. And one thing is, we did fight it because we said, Jesus, it wasn't our fault, and it took so long because the person that we hired to fight it, we built up so much in penalties. And I was told that there are no penalties if you are audited and then you choose to fight the IRS, but that's not true, isn't that correct? Because
no, what happens is there are a number of different kinds of penalties that you can be assessed. And again,
it was interest. Actually, it was interest. It was interest.
Well, that's where. So, interest you can almost never have abated because that's statutory. That the IRS has to impose that by law. But the penalties, there are different levels of penalty, and they can be somewhat discretionary. I mean, the IRS likes to say that they're not, but they are. And if you have a tax professional that goes in and says, look at, this was an honest mistake. This should not be a willful percentage for a penalty because it was an honest mistake. It's not unlikely that they would knock the penalty off. I mean, you would still get hit with the interest. But the penalties can be 25%. I mean, they can be pretty
I know. So
sizable.
My piece
and
of
then
it,
the interest goes on top of that, which makes it even worse, right?
And it was intense for us. I mean, the interest almost killed us, and I didn't expect it. And my advice to anyone, and I'm not a professional, would be if you're audited, try and get it out of the way as fast as you can, because in the end, I mean, the interest can really kill you. But any really quick tips that you can give us before we leave, because people are nervous about it, they don't know what to do. Is there anything that you could tell us?
Oh, yeah, a couple things. Well, the one is if you're nervous, get an extension because I do think that, and when you talk about, is there an advantage to filing early? I think it's better to have a correct return filed on extension than a sloppy return filed on time. So if it starts getting close to the wire and you just, you were waiting on a tax form that didn't come, or you haven't been able to get your ducks in a row, you haven't been able to meet with your accountant, get an extension. It's free. It's 6 months, which is a pretty good chunk of time. The thing that you need to keep in mind is, though, if you're going to have to pay, if you know that you're going to have a tax bill, then you want to pay that when you apply for your extension. So you make the payment.
I mean, pay
so
a
you
portion
think-
of it because you're not sure.
Right. So you think,
Yeah.
you know what? Last year I owed $3,000. I think I'm going to owe $3,000 this year. You send in your $3,000 because the extension is the extension of the time to file, not the extension of the time to
For the
pay.
money. Okay, quickly. We only have a minute. What else would you recommend?
I would say that when you're looking at deductions, if you don't think, just from a time-saving perspective, if you don't think you're going to hit those numbers, don't waste your accountant's
Don't waste your time. Mm-hmm.
Because again, especially if you're paying per schedule or anything like that. And along those lines, like when you talk about tax preparers and you're looking at cost, don't be so cheap that you end up making a mistake. You want to make sure that you have a good tax preparer, somebody who has a P10, which is a PTIN number, which the IRS requires, and who isn't going to get you in trouble, because one of the dirty dozen schemes this year that the IRS has been touting are these professionals who kind of pop up and they say, I'll do your return for really cheap, and then you end up getting into trouble.
I just had a
Can you-
situation like that on a personal level, and I paid for something on the cheap, and I will never do that again. And now I have to go out and get somebody else to do it. So I understand that. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks
I
for
really
having me.
appreciate it, and we'll come back to you again, maybe right before tax time. How about that?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. Okay, bye-bye. She's great.
Yeah.
That was a great show. Did you do your own taxes?
I haven't finished them yet. I have issues with my taxes. I got married last year, and then my wife got a new job. So I have all these W-2s and all these forms I have to do. And
I never get them. Either they don't mail them and they say,
Yeah.
oh, it's on the website. I'm like, what website? So I have to go find it, and then I don't know what to do. And then I got to call like Texas. They're 3 hours ahead. And then, it takes me weeks just to get everything ready to prepare. And then I just dump it on the guy's lap. And I'm so conservative. I'd rather not take a deduction than take one because of my experience with being audited. It's like, forget it. Don't even take it. He said, Deborah, it's legal. I'm like, I don't want to take it. I don't want to deal with these people anymore. Just pay.
yeah, I haven't been audited yet, thank God. But
No, it's awful.
Yeah,
It
I would
really-
imagine it would be a horrible experience.
And it wasn't because I was nervous. It was because I didn't realize the interest was going to build up. So I didn't care. It's like, oh, put them off. And I would never advise it. Just be conservative. You don't have to take every last deduction, in my opinion. Just pay it and get out of there. So you don't want to end up like I did. So, okay. It was a good show.
Yeah.
Michael Reagan's great. She was terrific.
Yeah. Michael Reagan, man, the way he talks, I just get lost. He's just
Well,
so...
imagine the wealth of information. I mean, he lived through it. He lived through, considered to be one of the greater presidents.
Yeah.
And he knows what it was like. So all these people running around, touting his father. I mean, could you imagine somebody talking about your dad and they hardly even knew him?
Yeah, exactly.
So he has such an interesting perspective, and he can look at it from all areas.
Yeah.
But I do remember going head to head with him, and he said, Trump will never get in there. And it's like, nope, you're wrong. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll talk about this again soon. And that was another really fun edition
Yes.
of What's Up with Kobylt and Friends. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week.